a street replacement.
Yeah.
From the alley-oops at Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way. From off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. It's breaking news. The 49ers have signed a defensive tackle, Hassan Ridgeway. I know this is the move everyone expected to happen today.
JLA, I don't know if this is the DJ Jones replacement. This feels like the Kentavious Street replacement, man. That's what this feels like. This feels like a rotational guy that they're going to bring in to the fold. This feels like Kentavious Street is probably on the outs. They didn't even extend him a tender offer anyway. I know people were saying, well, they didn't extend him something, but they're going to definitely try and re-sign him. I didn't think so, and it doesn't look like it now.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it does look like this is more of a depth piece. I don't think this has much to do with DJ Jones as it has to do with maybe Kentavious Street. So that's definitely something that is getting done. And so now they bring this guy in, and it's a super cheap deal, right, Alex? It's super cheap.
1 year, $2.5 million. So it's not going to cost you a whole heck of a lot. I'm assuming this is going to be, a minimum salary, probably closer to that $1.5 million range with escalators up to $2.5 million. So this is going to be not that expensive for the San Francisco 49ers. And it's a guy who's 27, so he's still fairly young. He's been in the league for a while, but he has been dealing with a little bit of nagging injuries the past couple of seasons. I think it was an ankle injury that landed him on injury reserve in 2019, and he had a bicep injury in 2020, but he was healthy all of 2021. So that's good news. If you are worried about, the Niners signing, right, guys who are a little more injury prone, he had a couple in 2019, 2020 that kept him out, but he was healthy all of last season, was available for all 17 games for the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's good.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, that's the thing. You're looking to get a guy in that can get depth. The 49ers are definitely looking for cheap options, players that they can, bring in at cheap rates and then get a lot of dynamic ability out of them. This is part of the reason you have Chris Kasarik, so he can bring guys who maybe fit what he wants, and then bring them in and see how they can get it done.
Absolutely. So Jeremy Fowler has tweeted out, by the way, as well, what the actual deal is at the moment. 1 year, $2.5 million. 1 million of which is fully guaranteed. So 1 million guaranteed, which means $1.5 million in incentives that escalate up if he probably hits some sack numbers and snaps, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense then. You bring this guy in and you see what he can do, and then you give him some things that he can reach for and things that he can try to attain. And that'll help him get into the right, mindset. But this is kind of what they did last year, right? They had Arden Key and Maurice Hurst that they brought in on cheap deals and then expected them to get a lot of production. They're going to do the same thing with Hassan. They're going to bring him in and see what kind of production they can get out of him. And it's smart for him to go play for the 49ers and, the potential. He's been in the league for 6 years. He's never really maximized his ability. So a depth piece that can compete to make this roster. And if he does, he'll be part of a nice rotation. When the 49ers usually hit on defensive linemen, they usually hit big. We saw what happened when they traded for Charles Omenihu, a talented player, Jordan Willis, a talented player, DJ Jones, a 6th-round pick that they developed. This just seems to be something that they do, and they do it really well with interior defensive linemen, and he's the latest to add to the list.
Definitely is. He's definitely the latest to add to the list, and this is a nice situation right now for the Niners. I think I think they have a plan sort of in place, right? They have things that they want to do. They have things that they're trying to do with this roster in terms of filling out the 90 man, but bringing in pieces that can compete and fulfill roles. We've seen them address the Marcel Harris situation by bringing in Oren Burks. You improved your special teams. You improve your linebacking room in terms of a guy who can do some things in the run game and come up and it is explosive and fast, and you feel you can develop and turn into something. Now you're doing the same thing with the interior D line, right? Kentavious Street,
right?
Not tendering him. You bring this guy in, 27, has had some moments. He's had 9.5 sacks over the course of his career, so it's not like he hasn't done anything. He had 3 last season with the Philadelphia Eagles. 2 last season with the Philadelphia Eagles. Having started 1 game and really was playing in a rotation. So there is potential here. There is an opportunity here for this guy to do something. And let's not forget, this guy was originally drafted as a DN. He was drafted by a DN by the Indianapolis Colts at 22. So this is a guy who's kind of in that tweener role, kind of that hybrid role, 6'3", 305 pounds. Maybe is just starting to get an idea of where he belongs. And San Francisco played against Philly this year. Maybe they believe there's something there they can work with.
Before we move on, the Bills have just went absolute ham, giving Von Miller a 6-year deal worth $120 million.
Holy shnikes.
But that is not all, because the Bills are also very close, and it appears they have signed tight end O.J. Howard as well.
Oh, wow.
So J.D. McKissick leaves, decides he's going to go back to Washington, and Washington's like, well, we're going to get Von Miller on an absolutely monster deal, and we're going to bring in O.J. Howard too. So O.J. Howard, someone that I know that 49er fans were looking at, and also Von Miller. So this market for edge rushers has been crazy. So the Niners are going the cheap route right here with Hassan Ridgeway. It's a little bit different. I mean, it's a different type of move, but these are the strategic moves you kind of expected. This was not the move, though, that I expected them to make. Of course, I'm expecting Raheem Mostert to come through, but not so fast. The 49ers, worked out the money situation. Alex, you went live this morning talking about George Kittle and Armstead, and this wasn't something that was too surprising. They kicked the can down the road a little bit. They're under the cap. They haven't moved on from Jimmy Garoppolo. Apparently, Deshaun Watson's supposed to make his decision sometime tonight or tomorrow, with the thought being tomorrow. And then that's maybe when the ball starts rolling on a Jimmy Garoppolo trade. But what they did was buy themselves time. And now, they're really not in. They weren't going to pay Von Miller, for instance, 6 years, $120 million. They weren't going to pay Chandler Jones $17.5 million a year with over $35 million guaranteed. So they weren't going to compete, in those lengths for those type of players. They're looking for more middle of the road guys that are more financially feasible. And this is one of the guys that fits the bill. He's a good interior defensive lineman that's going to add depth. You're hoping he's going to improve in the rotation and play really good when you get a lot of great players around him.
Ahmad Z, Niners are always shopping at the dollar store. Look, at the end of the day right now, right, here's what we know. We know the Niners, with all of their tendered players, if they all take their offer that was on the table, and I know Aziz had tweeted something out a little bit ago, Anthony, made it seem like he might be getting ready to sign and run it back one more year, but he hasn't officially signed anything yet, as of my knowledge, per se. If the Niners, with the cap space they currently have, if all the tendered players sign, the Niners had about $4 million in cap space. So what did you just do? You have $4 million in cap space. You can either sit on your hands and do nothing and wait to move off of Jimmy Garoppolo, right? And free up the cap space to go make some big moves, or you can go about addressing the things you can address right now, which is depth in other places. So depth in the linebacker room, addressed with Oren Burks. Now depth in the interior defensive line, addressed with Hassan Ridgeway. You have some rotational guys and pieces to work with. They have still about $3 million, if you include the tendered players in their signings. They have about $4 million in cap. You just spent $1 million on this. You have about $3 million still available to address and sign some other pieces. So there are a couple of smaller name guys that could still potentially be signed by the San Francisco 49ers. I wouldn't be surprised if we see 1 or 2 more before the night's over, because a big name is not going to get brought in until Jimmy Garoppolo's contract comes off the book. It's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, and they could turn to Jimmy Ward, of course, and extend his contract. They could turn to Samson Ebukam and extend his contract, and then that'll free up some money, and not a lot of money. I think Jimmy Ward will give them a little over $5 million. So if they were wanting to bring in Jason Verrett or K'Wan Williams, because I saw that down here in the chat that, maybe people are wanting K'Wan Williams to come back. I did see a couple of questions, so I thought we could go over them real quick. Bomber T is wanting to know, about Deshaun Watson. And no, I don't think, Alex, I don't think you believe, and I know I don't believe that the 49ers are in Deshaun Watson. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about that unless you believe they're in on him.
No, no circumstance are the Niners in on Deshaun Watson. This is not happening. The only reason the Deshaun Watson situation makes any sense to talk about is if we're talking about him going to the Browns in some sort of deal, or if Baker Mayfield ends up leaving, goes to Indy because of this situation. Deshaun doesn't end up with the Browns, and we're talking about Jimmy Garoppolo going to Cleveland. That is the only reason Deshaun Watson has any effect on the 49ers in terms of discussing Deshaun Watson and any sort of trade situation. Where he lands could affect where Jimmy lands.
All right, so let's get off Deshaun for right now. But Quest for Six says, hey, fellas, I'm not sure if you touched on this yet, but any chance we go after Austin Hooper?
We haven't had a chance to talk about this yet, but listen, he played for Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta. Kyle Shanahan is very familiar with him. Last season, before he signed his contract with the Browns, they were in apparently a bidding war with the Browns over Austin Hooper, and the Browns were willing to pay more and overpay for Austin Hooper. Guess what? And shocking development, it didn't work out in Cleveland. They've now released him. He is back on the market available, as well as another receiver who's very familiar with Kyle Shanahan named Julio Jones. Look, I think both of those guys you have to talk about. Julio and Austin Hooper are connected with Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan said last year, whenever Julio Jones is available, you have to look into and consider Julio Jones. The San Francisco 49ers are looking into this. And I think they're hoping the Deshaun Watson situation gets done, because I think they would be willing to spend some money and bring Julio into the fold. I think they would love to get Austin Hooper into the fold. And you know what? Austin Hooper's value might be the lowest it's been in a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think anytime someone is tied to Kyle Shanahan, especially, you're thinking that they're a possibility for the 49ers. And we've seen it before. You know, Jordan Reed, he was only with them for a limited time in Washington, but he was able to get him to come in on a really cheap deal. So I think the 49ers would consider, you know, some of these players that have definitely been playing for Kyle Shanahan before. The question is, how much money is Julio Jones still going to want at this point in his career? Maybe he's all in on winning a Super Bowl now. I mean, it's not a trade like last year. This time it's a free agency. So the $15 million the 49ers don't have to worry about, especially last year was a second and a sixth for Julio Jones.
Sure.
They weren't going to do that. So I think that this is one of those situations where it's a better chance. I have seen people that have been already saying, no, we don't need Julio Jones. We have Jawan Jennings. We don't need another guy.
Stop this. Stop this right now. We don't need Jawan Jennings. We have Jawan Jennings. We don't need Julio Jones. Does anyone really believe that Jawan Jennings is a better wide receiving threat than Julio Jones?
I don't think they honestly believe that. I mean, at least I would like to think they don't.
I hope they don't.
But yeah, I think. Well, the thing is, right, Alex, we talked about this. At least 5 guys are going to be on the receiving core for the 49ers. At least 5. If you could improve the room so your third guy is better than the current third guy you have right now, I think you have to do it. And so that's something. But why we're doing that, because a guy that you love, Robert Tonyan, has just been brought up in chat. Alex, Robert Tonyan was expected to get over $10 million and yet is still, not signed. When's it going to get time for the 49ers to be possibly in on Robert Tonyan, or will they ever get in on Robert Tonyan?
Right now, Ant. Right now is the time. I don't think anyone wants to pay him $10 million. And listen, I think he's worth it. I think he's talented enough. I think he definitely deserves $10 million, but he's coming off of injuries. And teams obviously feel that it's not worth the $10 million right now. It's not worth the risk. And if it ain't worth the risk, if the juice isn't worth the squeeze for some of these teams, San Francisco, line 1, dual threat, Robert Tonyan, pair him up with George Kittle. I want that more than I want Austin Hooper, to be honest with you. I would rather have Robert Tonyan. I think he's extremely more dynamic. I think you become a team that is in a great spot. You're talking about running potentially 2 tight end sets, and in which you could flex George Kittle out wide with Robert Tonyan on the interior, or vice versa. And it doesn't feel like a 2 tight end set. It really doesn't. So I'm all for that. But listen, I think the reality is I think we're getting close to that time where Tonyan's got to be sitting there going, am I getting 10? I don't think I'm getting 10. Maybe I don't go sign a long-term contract right now. Maybe I just take a little bit less and go play for a contender, right? And show what my value is, and then try and capitalize next year. The cap went up some, Ant, this year, but it's definitely still not where teams were hoping it was going to be. And because of that, you have teams that are having to make choices and sacrifices in terms of where they overpay. And so it doesn't seem like tight end is that position right now.
And for everyone that just jumped in, we got a lot of new viewers that just jumped in. Hassan Ridgeway has signed with the 49ers, interior defensive tackle. He's played for the Colts and he's played for the Eagles. He's a 6-year vet, and the 49ers signed him to a 1-year deal at $2.5 million, a very cheap option for the 49ers as they look to increase the depth that they've lost, of course, by losing other players. This also, makes it so they can move on from Kentavious Street. They did not tender Kentavious Street a contract, so he is a free agent. I'm sure they would love to sign Kentavious Street on the league minimum, but now he's free to go and see what's out there. But they did not want to put a right of first refusal on him that would have cost them over $2 million, close to $3 million. You weren't going to do that for Kentavious Street. You let him walk on, so you got a cheaper version here, but a 6-year veteran that has a lot of ability and could possibly slide right into Chris Kaceric's defense and add to this rotation. Somebody that can play behind Javon Kinlaw.
100%, Ant. This is big. This is huge. This is a nice situation here for the 49ers. Listen, is it the big name that we all want? No, absolutely not. That's not the case. But it is a good name. It's a depth piece. It's a rotational guy. It's a young guy who is hungry and looking to, break into the league and get himself a contract. He's seen Arden Key, right? He's seen Kerry Hyder, and he's going, I want in on this, right? I want this. I want Chris Kaceric. I want the sack numbers going up. I want teams to take me seriously. I want the big contract. I want to go from a guy making a couple million a year to a guy making 10 million a year. That's what I want to be. I want to be in that position. So he's putting himself in this position with San Francisco, in which he's going to keep himself in a rotation. He's not competing necessarily for a starting job, but he knows he's getting into a rotation with a coach who's shown he can develop and get these guys on the right track. I just saw a quest for 6A2. Do you think we bring back Arden Key? We still could. We 100% still can. And the fact that no one else has signed him to the big number means maybe that 6.25 number was a little high, and teams are looking at him as a situational guy and not really wanting to pull the trigger at the moment.
Well, the scary thing is about Arden Key is the money that's now going out for these edge rushers. He put up 8 sacks, but he's still super young. So you have that going against you. You have Von Miller that just got the absolute monster deal from the Bills. Chandler Jones gets the huge deal. Zadarius Smith gets a huge deal. So there's a lot of edge rushers along the way, and you wonder if their value is so high now that it's going to somewhat price the 49ers out of getting some of these guys. So you might be looking again to bring back a Jordan Willis, and then to maybe get somebody that is looking to, reinvent themselves or reestablish themselves as one of the better edge rushers. So a Melvin Ingram or someone like that, because I wonder if somebody's going to look at Arden Key as a young option, as somebody they can put into their rotation, because right now the AFC West is paying people a ridiculous amount of money, and it appears that other teams are deciding it is their time to go in as well, like the Buffalo Bills. So I think that there's still money out there for these guys, and I worry that Arden Key is going to get offered a contract that is outside the price range that the 49ers can afford or are willing to give a guy who is definitely a rotational pass rusher for their defense.
100% accurate. 100% accurate. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be really tough. It's going to be absolutely gut wrenching if you're not able to bring this guy back in. But the reality of the situation is until the Niners move off of Jimmy Garoppolo's contract, they're not necessarily hamstrung in terms of being able to sign guys, because they can still do some other extensions and things, but they are putting themselves in a box sort of in terms of what they're looking to do. They're not looking to extend and move money around for a bunch of people right now, because they like being one of those teams, and we've talked about this, they like being one of those teams that is lowest in the league in terms of dead cap money, right? They like that about their roster. That means you haven't necessarily gone too far yet. You haven't necessarily pushed things down the road so far that you're so focused on winning right now that you're neglecting your future. They're trying to make sure they can build a sustainable roster around Trey Lance, which I like. But at some point here, you're going to have to start maybe kicking that can down the road on some of these contracts. You're going to have to start making some moves and getting some of these guys. The only thing I think they have going for them right now is there's a handful of teams that are waiting. They are legitimately waiting to see what happens with Deshaun Watson and where things land and what teams start valuing and who they let go in response. Because a couple of these teams that we're talking about in the mix, teams like Carolina, teams like the Saints, right? Teams like the Colts, the cap space isn't necessarily in their favor if they take on a contract like Deshaun Watson, which means guys are going to have to get let go, which means potential voids and roster spots and openings available for them to maybe want to sign with and contend and compete. So I think the Niners know they have some time to be patient. Let's just hope they're not too patient. Not too patient.
Yeah, I know. The 49ers are definitely being patient and letting this thing play out with Jimmy Garoppolo. Of course, once they move off of him, they can be a little bit more aggressive. But some of that money is already going to be allocated to some of the guys they've offered. Daniel Brunskill is probably going to get his deal done eventually, and that's a little under $3 million. Azeez Al-Shire, $3.9 million. Those are money. That's money that's already allocated to players they've offered contracts to. And I believe Jawan Jennings, I don't know if he's officially signed or not, but his $870,000 contract is still open, I believe. So these guys still have to be added. So even when they get Jimmy Garoppolo off the books, it's not freeing up a full $25 million because they do already have this money somewhat budgeted for a couple of players. Now they can, of course, sign guys, but I mean, they still got some work to do. And thanks for the new subscription, Kill Switch X Live, Mikey. Welcome to the Cutback Crew.
Welcome to the Cutback Crew, indeed, my guy. And I apologize for covering you up there. That's on me, my guy. That's on me. That's what happens when I'm not in studio when news breaks and we're both available to break live news. We have to shuffle some things around, but it's okay.
That's right.
It's fine. It's fine. This is exciting though, man. I'm excited about this move. I'm excited about the possibilities out there for San Francisco right now. There's so many things that can be done, and I did see a couple of people asking about a handful of different things. One of which was Shooter asked, does Jimmy still have a no trade clause in his contract? And the answer to that question is no, he does not. He does not have a trade clause for his contract. That's not what's going on.
Not as
right
of
now.
1 p.m. today.
As of 1 p.m. today, that thing was gone, which means he can go anywhere. The reality, though, is I think all of these teams, right? I think 49ers fans could admit this. I know we can admit this on this podcast. Deshaun Watson is a really good quarterback. Right, when Deshaun Watson is on the field, he's really good at being a quarterback in the football league. So any team that thinks they can land Deshaun Watson is going to be expending all potential avenues and opportunities in which to do so, which is going to kind of put a pause on the Jimmy Garoppolo market until that gets settled.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is something that it has to fall. It's a domino that needs to fall because that's the only way you're going to get full commitment from some of these teams to go in on Jimmy Garoppolo. As long as there is a more enticing, player out there, they're gonna kind of hope that is the way to go. Every single one of the teams that are involved in the Deshaun Watson deal have offered 3 first-round picks for him. Every single one of them. So they, right now they're all fully committed. Now, once they turn around and he's not available, then it's more enticing. But now that Baker Mayfield presumably is going to be on the market as well, there's some interesting things going on there. Now, while this whole thing goes, the 49ers still need to make some other moves. What you see right here with Ridgeway, they need to make other moves, like more low budget, low cost, under the radar moves to build their team. And it's something that needs to happen, and they're getting it done. And I like that they're staying focused on business, even though they know that the Jimmy Garoppolo thing, is hanging over their head. Now, the one thing, Alex, that was nice is we've been talking about for like a week or two now about the framework being in place for these restructures, and the restructures came into hand today. It was already completely set up. George Kittle restructure, Armstead restructure, free up the money. Make sure you don't have to make a move right away with Jimmy Garoppolo. That way, when you do get the trade that you want, you're able to move him, and then you can get the assets you want. You didn't want to have to cut him or anything to free up that $25 million.
No, you don't want to have to cut him to free the $25 million. I know you got the Nick Newmans of the world and a couple other people on Twitter just saying, just do it, just cut him to get off of this. Let's just move on, right? It's not worth it. Why is it so important to get these picks? Why is it so important to get these things when we could just sign these free agents and sign things like that? Well, number one, first and foremost, releasing Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't guarantee that you're going to land any of these free agents. Right? Just because you have the cap space, doesn't mean these guys are going to sign with you. That's not what that means. So you're what you're saying, you're conflating two things, right? You're conflating having cap space with landing free agents. That's not how it works. If you have cap space, it means you have the opportunity to land free agents. Just like if you have draft picks, Ant, you have the opportunity to hit on a draft pick or miss on a draft pick. It is both those things are not the same thing. So, Jimmy Garoppolo trading and getting that capital just ensures that no matter what, you're going to get a guy in or two guys into the room that you want there. And at the end of the day, that's what you want to do.
Adrian Gutierrez says, is this guy better than DJ Jones? No, he's not. DJ Jones is a far superior player. This guy is the replacement for Kentavious Street, not the replacement for DJ Jones.
Correct.
And then, this, I like this. David CH says, Ridgeway? It's not Reddick, it's Ridgeway. No confusion there. Yeah, this is a depth piece, guys. This is not a guy that's going to come in there and make a huge impact as a starting interior defensive lineman for the 49ers. He will be, basically competing for a job on the inside. They did give him some guaranteed money, so I fully expect they believe he'll make the 53-man roster. They believe he's good enough, and they believe Chris Cassera can get a lot out of him. But this is not one of those flash in the pan, splashy moves that the 49ers are making. This is a complete depth move that they're hoping benefits them as they get in, later on in the season, and they got the full rotation of defensive line going.
I agreed with you there. I saw earlier too, Ethan Villafan said Raheem Mostert is coming back, right? I would imagine so. I think you and I both believe that's going to be the case. But until it happens, until the Niners actually pull the trigger on it, it's going to be a little bit of time. They may be waiting on some more medical stuff before they pull the trigger and waiting to see some things. Then again, Ant, with about $3 million in cap space right now still available for the 49ers to play with until you move off of Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe this is the time where you pull the trigger on a cheap guy like Raheem Mostert or Jason Verrett.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they could definitely work out some with Jason Verrett or K'Wan Williams right now, even at Jaquiski Tartt, because they're going to have a little bit of money available. So this is something that you can keep an eye on. In fact, before this move came down, I was kind of looking at Jordan Phillips, see if he was going to be available. So I think that the Niners can still make some of those moves right now because they definitely have the money, and they could go to Jimmy Ward, of course, and extend him, and then they would definitely have the money and make the move for Jaquiski Tartt or Jason Verrett or both. So those are things that can still be done. I think there's going to be things that are going to be done while they're waiting for the Jimmy Garoppolo trade to go ahead and happen.
It's true. Who the fook is this guy? And McGregor's voice says L Golden Boy. This is a guy who's played for Indy. He's played for Philly. 2 sacks last year. He had 3 his first year in Philadelphia when he got there. Young piece, 27. You're paying him $1 million guaranteed. He's got $1.5 million in incentives. And this is the guy who's going to be replacing Kentavious Street. That's what we got here. We got a Kentavious Street replacement, and that's what we're looking at. And we'll see. It looks like the Niners are in on Kinlaw. It looks like they're betting on Kinlaw and his development, what he's going to be. That's what it seems like, unless another name gets brought in, another free agent is signed on the interior.
And what's up, Luke Luna? Just wanted to say what's up to Luke. Crypto King, 49ers need offensive help really bad. Offensive line help. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, that's what it appears. But it appears that the 49ers are kind of okay right now with their interior offensive line. They did not go out and sign any of the offensive linemen that were available that fit the scheme. There's really no high price guys left. There's really no one on the interior that fits what the 49ers want to do. I mean, there is the center, Treader, or what I think is that his name, Alex from the Browns.
Treader.
He's available. But it's like, I don't know if they're going to make that kind of move. They don't want to pay that kind of money to an interior offensive lineman. So they're not addressing that. So right now it looks like they're looking to kind of add the depth. So we're going to start seeing those depth signings right now. The rotation guys, there's none of the high price guys. And I wonder if there will be another high price guy. I know the 49er fans are still waiting on an edge rusher, waiting on a safety possibly. I know a lot of people want the honey badger. That's what we've been seeing a lot in the chat.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, this is something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. I just don't know. I was kind of surprised that Tyrann Mathieu hasn't signed yet.
I'm surprised he still hasn't signed yet, Ant. I would have figured today was the day. I don't know if he's waiting for something specifically, if his value is too high and people feel there's been a drop-off and they're not willing to pay that money. I'm not sure, because we saw the Justin Reed contract come through and I was sitting there going, okay, I mean, this means the Honey Badger's making $15 million. He's going to make $15 million. It's just a matter of who's pulling the trigger on it when, and no one has pulled the trigger on it. So, is this a thing that's going to happen? Is he going to be, capitalizing on the big paydays from some of these young safeties across the league who got paid? Because Tracy Fowler also, the Detroit paid him a nice little chunk of change. It wasn't anything like Justin Reed's contract, but even him, it was a guy we talked about in our safety free agent video. Detroit brought him back in on a 1-year deal, I think about $5 or $6 million. So, the money is definitely out there for Tyrann Mathieu. The question is are the teams offering it? He's just like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going there. I'm not putting myself through that.
Ahmad Z said, what about right tackle? Here's the thing with Mike McGlinchey. Mike McGlinchey suffered a pretty bad injury. I mean, he literally, tore his quad off the bone. And then he's going to have to recover from that. It's a extensive recovery. He's a $10.8 million cap hit. Here's the deal. If you cut him, right, you save the money, you save the 10.8, but you don't have a right tackle. If you trade him, you might not be able to trade him, and you definitely won't be able to get the value you would expect to get for him because he has the injury. So right now you're kind of caught in the middle with McGlinchey, all the while wondering if Mike McGlinchey is actually the best option you have available right now besides addressing it in the draft, because there's nobody right now. I mean, Morgan Moses was probably the most obvious choice of someone you could have replaced him with. But Moses is signed. He went to Baltimore. So the 49ers would have to go, what? Brian Balaga is a name that's still out there. Trenton Brown is going to be meeting with Seattle, but he doesn't fit the system. Shanahan cut him when he first got here in 2017 or traded him. I think he traded him to New England.
He did.
So there's just not an option besides the draft. So right now, it appears Mike McGlinchey is just going to be the right tackle for the 49ers for at least the 2022 season, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Agreed. Adrian Gutierrez, I've seen you ask this now a couple of times. How do you guys feel about Marcus Mariota as an option for a backup? It's not happening.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going to happen. The reality is you paid Nate Sudfeld $2 million. You paid him $2 million guaranteed. He's your backup quarterback. The Niners could draft somebody, but they're not going to spend any more money on the quarterback room right now. They're going full in on Trey Lance. That's what they're going to do. That looks like the option right now. Maybe they draft someone and put them on the practice squad as a backup option. Maybe there's another vet guy that's going to be stupid cheap out there that they bring in to the table, but they're not going to be paying someone more than $2 million to come in and play quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. You paid Nate Sudfeld that money. We just saw, right? Joe Flacco just got $3.5 million from the Jets to be a backup quarterback, right? That's the going rate right now. About $2 to $4 million is what the going rate is right now to be a solidified backup quarterback in the league. The Niners have already guaranteed that to Sudfeld. There's not another name coming in that's going to be a viable option. They're not going to pay someone what Marcus Mariota could probably make out in the open market right now to be a backup for another team.
Yeah, I don't think they want to give that money to a backup quarterback. I think the $2 million guarantee solidified Nate Sudfeld as the backup quarterback. I think they could address, a third quarterback at some point and maybe even in the draft. We'll see what happens there. Ken Martin just joined in the chat and said, Trent Brown, right tackle, ? Don't think so. He's headed to Seattle, but he doesn't fit the scheme. I mean, this is when Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch got here in 2017, they quickly moved Trent Brown. Trent Brown is one of those guys that he has a lot of potential, especially in the run game, but often is kind of thought of as a lazy player. So he takes plays off. You would hope he would play as good as Trent Williams with the size and everything, but he doesn't. So no, I don't think he's a legitimate option for the 49ers. I think it's going to be McGlinchey. I mean, that's another reason I think they would be willing to bring back Tom Compton because Tom Compton did admirably over there. So Compton's another move that could come here pretty soon.
I know that's going to freak some people out right now. Some of the chat right now is going to be like, Tom Compton? What? Guys, he shouldn't even made the roster last year. The reality is when he went in and he played pretty well. I mean, listen, he struggled in the playoffs. I think we all can admit
good enough for a backup, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about depth and a guy who can come in as a, seventh, eighth guy, then fine. It is what it is. But look, maybe the draft is where they're looking, but I think you and I have both looked at the draft, right? And I don't think either one of us is in love with all of this O-line class as a whole. I think there's individual guys that we really like, but I think as a whole, this is a fairly nonchalant class with the O-line.
Yeah. So SR166 says, Deshaun Watson, what do you think, Alex?
Nope.
I know you commented on this before, but new to the chat, I'm sure.
Nope.
So just lay it out there. No, I don't think so either.
No, it's not. Look, it's not happening, man. It's not going to happen. If this was 2021 pre Trey Lance, this would be happening. It's not though. That's not the world we're in anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't think the 49ers could afford him. Even if they traded Trey Lance, they would have to trade another first-round pick, I'm sure, maybe even more. And right now, every team that is in on Deshaun Watson has agreed to 3 first-round picks plus players or plus more. So I just don't think the 49ers are willing to gut even more. So I don't think that's going to happen. Jazzy says, I'd take Jennings over Jones. So another one in the point of they'd rather have Jawan Jennings. I love Jawan Jennings. But I mean, I don't know about that. If Kyle Shanahan signs Julio Jones, then we'll know. But I know the Patriots are in really, really high on Julio Jones. So we'll see what happens there.
Jazzy, we don't need another possession receiver. Julio Jones is not a possession receiver, my guy.
No, Jawan Jennings is a possession receiver.
Yes.
Julio Jones is not. I think what we do need is someone to take the top off the defense, which the 49ers haven't addressed yet. Julio wouldn't be that guy. Even though he's an athletic guy that can win jump balls and stuff, he's not as athletic as he used to be. So I think they do need to address that. The way they're going now cheap, I don't know if MVS is still in the conversation. So Valdez-Scantling might be off the docket for the 49ers. So now it's time to look for the cheap guys, Alex. Like I was saying, John Ross, welcome back to the party.
John Ross is a name that we have been on, and Ant, it's one of your favorite guys. And listen, if you're not aware of John Ross and you're like, well, this is a dude who hasn't done anything, Kyle Shanahan loves the guy. He absolutely loves the guy. He was absolutely in love with him in the draft that he came out, and he's a 4-2-2 guy. Talk about being able to take the top off the defense, Ant. He does that. He is going to do that. So, and he did that last year with the Giants of all teams. If he can do that with the Giants, you can definitely find a way to use him in San Francisco. 100%.
Yeah, and then Marvin Rose says, what about Jarvis Landry? My belief and what I've heard about Jarvis Landry is New Orleans, possibly. I think some of these teams are waiting. You know, if Deshaun Watson goes to New Orleans, obviously Jarvis Landry would be a player I could see going there and adding to that receiving core.
Maybe. Michael Steckham here said, our O-line can't block long enough to throw deep. Look, here's the thing is, go ahead, Ant. You say
Get the run game going, and then the play action will give you enough time. You now have a mobile quarterback. You can move the pocket, let him throw from outside, the tackle box. That is part of the reason you've got Trey Lance, so he could create off schedule and make off-platform throws. So the offensive line is always going to be built, besides Trent Williams, I always have to put him out there because he's a unicorn.
Correct. To
run block first. They're not going to be as good at pass blocking. That's just something they don't do. They could shift at some point by switch if they eventually shift on and move on from Mike McGlinchey and go to a more pass-dominant right tackle, but they never want to lose the ability to be able to run the football. And so that is one of their focuses. So because it is, you're always going to get run-first offensive linemen that they hope to develop into pass blockers, except for someone like Jalen Moore, who's a pass-first guy that they're trying to develop into a run blocker.
And who knows, Ant? Maybe that boy Kellen Deitch coming out this year in the draft, possibly him too.
I do like him.
I like him a lot.
If he's if he's sitting in the right spot for the Niners in the draft, yeah, you go ahead and pounce on him. We do know this: the Niners have a very good relationship with the coaching staff there, so they're going to have the 4-1-1 on him. And if he's a piece that is available, they'll go after him.
Agreed. Ken Martin said Jakeem Grant would be a nice little speedy guy, great returner. Unfortunately, though, he signed. I believe he signed with the Browns, if I'm not mistaken.
Was it it might have been the Browns.
I think it was the Browns. Yeah. It was definitely definitely a team, Ant, that is a little bit off the radar. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, and Ghost Za'Darius went to the Baltimore Ravens.
He did.
He got a 4-year deal, $35 million. That could actually, with bonuses, go all the way up to $50 million. Niner Empire says Hassan Ridgeway coming off a career year. Hassan Ridgeway seems like the perfect candidate, right, for the Chris Kasarik renovation project. You come in, you renovate your career playing for Chris Kasarik, and then you turn around and go get a big contract. So they have a couple of guys that are going to try to do that, him and Maurice Hurst. We also have Kevin Givens, who, if Givens plays up to potential, he could be the next DJ Jones, who next offseason goes out and gets himself a big contract.
Very much could be the case. In fact, I've seen a bunch of people already saying that, Ant, right? I've said this already. I've seen a couple people saying this, that, not DJ Jones, but Kevin Givens is the perennial breakout star on the defensive line this upcoming year. The problem, Ant, these same people are also saying it was going to be Javon Kinlaw's time last year, and DJ Jones was nowhere in the conversation. So we're going to see. We're going to see who the guy is that breaks out and stands out on this interior D line. There's a lot of good things for the 49ers to do, and they have got a lot of good pieces, including Maurice Hurst coming back into the fold. So the Niners have made sure they've addressed depth. Maybe Ant, they're still going to address some other things, and it looks like we just got a new subscription there, a new subscriber. Welcome. I think it's Izzy.
Welcome. Yeah. Gerardo Sanchez says, question, how good is this draft at offensive line? It's pretty good. I think that there are some really good, offensive tackles. There's some pretty good interior offensive linemen as well. Once we get closer to the draft, we're going to get into a full breakdown of all these guys. We've been studying them a little bit. There are some players that we really like. The question is, we got to wait until after free agency, wait to see who the 49ers bring back along the offensive line, because I believe, they did tender Daniel Brunskill, which means they fully intend to bring him back. They have Aaron Banks. They have Jalen Moore. Those are guys who could play at guard. They brought back Colton McKivitz. So they had some draft picks and some capital that they've invested in this offensive line. You wonder if they've been, brought up by Chris Forrester. Has he brought them to the point now where they're going to be able to step up and play? We don't know that yet. from what we saw from Banks in training camp, it was scary. But he's had a full season to work. He's going to have a full off season to work. And really, one of his main problems was lateral movement, lateral quickness, which I believe he can fix. They have him losing weight. They've had him on a weight loss plan. I believe they wanted him to lose 15 pounds, Alex. So maybe he's somebody that's going to step up. But yeah, they're probably going to draft an offensive lineman at some point. But we do know the 49ers don't normally take an interior guy. The Aaron Banks, kind of the off-putting pick. They normally go for an offensive tackle who has the flexibility to move inside, a la Colton McKivitz, or, of course, when he was in Washington, Tom Compton, of course, Jalen Moore as well.
Castro, welcome to the TCC as well, my guy. And Ant, look, I think there's some other things. Well, there's tons of names to talk about and tons of things to be talking about. Also, update on the Von Miller situation in that contract, Ant. It was 6 years, 120 million is what you had reported from the Bills. It looks like it's actually, it is a 6-year deal, but it looks like mostly a 4-year deal that's going to average out to about 17.5 million a year. So it looks like the last 2 years of that contract are option years, and none of that money is guaranteed in the last few. So still a big contract for a 33-year-old defensive end, and very much could be the case where the Bills are going all in right now and hoping that it's enough to get them over the hump. I know they also signed O.J. Howard as well, so adding some more weapons offensively for them and some other things to pair with Dawson Knox. We'll see what they decide to do. Is this signal to you with them going with a second tight end option that maybe they're going to try and focus on the run game a little bit more this year?
Oh, you would think so. I mean, right, that's something they probably needed in the playoffs a little bit of a better run game against Kansas City. Probably would have been good for them. But I think it's always nice for a team to have a player like O.J. Howard, because O.J. Howard can play, H-back, but he could also play inline as well. So that's why it's important for them. That's why I was hoping he was going to end up in San Francisco, because if he had ended up in San Francisco, I think it would have been a very solid number 2. I had seen someone in the chat ask if it was better for the 49ers to address the second tight end spot in free agency or in the draft. It's always cheaper to address it in the draft, because you're going to get a player later, that's a lot cheaper. But there, with Hooper being available now, you got to think Kyle Shanahan is going to be interested. Depending on the money, that might be something that he does. Kyle Shanahan likes to retread. He likes to bring players that he's comfortable with. You've seen this happen a bunch of times now. He could just be the latest guy that you add to the list.
100%. And look, I saw someone said, Von Miller can still play. You're not wrong. 100%. He 100% can still play. No one denies that. No one denies that. The questionable decision is giving the man a 6-year contract at 33 years old, where at the end of it, he's going to be 39. That's the thing we're all looking at going, holy cow, they wanted to make sure he didn't go anywhere else. And what is this going to do to the Rams, Ant? What does this do for the Rams, who Aaron Donald was sitting there saying, he wanted this man back. He's not back. He ain't back.
Yeah.
Also, can we talk about the fact that Chandler Jones obviously didn't want to win? He didn't want to win, Ant. He didn't want to win. He went somewhere else.
No, I think that's funny. Yeah, I think Chandler Jones wanted the bag. I mean, he wanted to go to a team that could possibly win, but really what he wanted was he wanted the money. I mean, that's what it came down to. It's all about the money, and he's going to get that money. So,
that's true.
But Von Miller, I mean, the length of the contract is just to spread out that money. That's really what it comes down to. They just couldn't have that happen.
True, and I'm going to give some shout outs to the new subscribers since my stupid face was covering them. Shout out to Mike Debean for the subscription. Welcome to the Cutback Crew. Your boy Lil Mike, welcome to the Cutback Crew. Jazzy, welcome to the Cutback Crew. The other one is Mike Casher, welcome to the Cutback Crew. And South Central Sal, welcome to the TCC.
Yeah, welcome. All of you, welcome to the Cutback Crew. We really appreciate it. Let us know what you think. If you haven't been in the chat, jump in the chat and let us know what you think, what you're thinking about, Ridgeway, what you're thinking about what the 49ers are going to do next, because this is something important. And T.O. is saying, Alex, what
great
does
question.
It do now for Marketing Pro is the bigger question. Not so much what does this do for Aaron Donald and Rams, but Marketing Pro, what are you going to do? I do think Aaron Donald stays, but there is some questions now with them not using that money on Von Miller. Are they going to turn and put it all towards the linebacker, possibly? Are they going to go a different route? Is Dante Fowler coming back? There's going to be some moves that they're going to need to make, but they definitely need another edge rusher, because if they don't get one, that defense is definitely not as dynamic as it was at the end of the year. And if I'm the 49ers and they are not able to get another big-time edge rusher, I'm feeling pretty happy about it. Now, they could get one in the draft, though.
They definitely could. And there is a plethora of talented edge rushers coming out in this draft. David Hasselhoff, though, with the question of questions, is releasing Jimmy an option? No, it is not an option.
You got to think at some point, right? Somebody would come through with something. I mean, the 49ers can get a pick of some sort. And the fact that John Middlecoff said they had a second round pick available means the 49ers it's not that a second round pick is not a possibility. It's whatever they're wanting on top of that second round pick. I mean, most people are just wanting them to take the first thing that's offered. And so far, they haven't done that. Is that going to come back to bite them in the butt? It could. I mean, they've definitely held on to Jimmy Garoppolo longer than I think they anticipated. I think they wanted it done before 1 p.m. today or 4 p.m. Eastern, but they didn't get to do that. So now they're playing a little bit into overtime. But the thing is, they still have the ball, and as long as they score a touchdown on this Jimmy Garoppolo, they win the game. If they don't, and they kick a field goal and they give the other team a chance, that's going to be bad for them. So they need to go ahead and get this thing done right now.
Yeah, it ain't going to be good for them. But look, I said this morning when the contract extensions got announced early in the AMs in the 6:45 range. When I came on around 7, I said, that this means one of two things. These extensions means one of two things: either big moves are imminent, or they don't plan on being able to move Jimmy by the time they need to today. So they're just making sure that they're under the cap while they sit and wait. I think at the end of the day, the reality is the Niners are close to what they want, but they're just trying to make sure they get that little bit extra. I think worst case scenario, they settle for 1 pick, and that would be a second round pick. I think best case scenario, they walk away with 2, and one of them's a second, one of them's a third or a fourth.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're looking to get some sort of return on Jimmy Garoppolo, and that's the reason you've held on to him so long. If they were, if they thought that even cutting him was more beneficial to their football team, I think they would have done it already. But I did see Michael Steckham said, did we pass the time to cut Jimmy? No, we haven't passed the time to cut Jimmy. They can cut him at any point right now and only incur, I think it's like 1 point something million dollars. Of course, he does have the injury settlement that would hit the 49ers. But once he signed with another team for over $7 million, the 49ers would get that money back.
It's true. I saw earlier, too, we had, I think it was SR 156, and he had asked, what are we expecting from Charvarius Ward? I think the big thing that we're expecting from Charvarius Ward is continual development from what we've seen from him the last few years in the league, and someone on third down that they think can shut down one side of the field and be able to lock down a team's number one, because that's what he was tasked with last year when he went in and started getting starts for the Chiefs, was being kind of the go-to guy to stop on big third down, big situations in man-to-man coverage, which is something we saw the Niners shift to a lot last year, was third down shorts, third and mediums, third and longs. Niners bringing pressure, disguising blitzes, and going man across the board.
Yeah, exactly. I think Charvarius Ward is such a great tackler too. So he's going to help with the run game. We know the 49ers it's so important for them to stop the run. So this is something that they're doing. And I think that he was a nice addition. I think he wasn't the addition that people expected. I think he was on their radar. Everyone was hearing it for like a week and a half, 2 weeks now, that he was somebody that was on their radar. But I think the fact that they chose him presumably over Stephon Gilmore was the first initial reaction. But the second reaction was really, in fact, that he got $14 million. But now that everything has come out and what these cornerbacks are getting on the open market, $1,400 seems like the actual amount he should have got, Alex.
The 14 million,
I know
yeah.
I was thinking more 11 or 12, but when you started seeing some of the other names, I mean, DJ Reed got $11 million a year. So the fact Kansas City was willing to give him 12, you got to go to 14 because you're in California in this tax bracket, you go ahead and you do it. So I think this is just something we've got to get used to with the 49ers. They're going to have to give guys a little bit extra here and there for the big name guys to make up for the taxes and the cost of living in California.
It's true. It really, really is. Megan had asked, who are you guys most excited about with the pickup so far? I think the biggest one is just Charvarius Ward, just because of what it means for the secondary, and the Niners actually investing and spending some money on a guy they believe is going to have a huge impact for the secondary, because it's just something they haven't done. It's not something they've done per se. I think the thing I'm most excited about, though, is at this point in time, it's all the picks we have. And we're talking about 10 picks going into this draft. That is a lot of draft capital and a lot of opportunity for the 49ers to strike, which is why they may be slow playing right now, free agency. They want to make sure they get the right guys at the right price because they think they can hit in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to send one of those picks, of course, to Miami.
Correct.
For the Trey Lance deal. So they'll come in with 9 picks. Presumably, if they trade Jimmy Garoppolo at some point, anytime now, 49ers, I think we would all enjoy that. Then they're going to have at least one more pick in this draft. And with that pick, they could do something else. So I think the Niners have enough firepower in this draft to go out and get some players. And there's going to be some dynamic players that are going to be in that 60s range where they're going to pick. They're going to pick 61 overall. So day 2 is going to be fun for the 49ers. They have, a few picks. They got one in the round 2. They got 2 in round 3. Hopefully, if they flip Jimmy, they get at least a second round. They could get a third round pick. And if they do, then that means they'll have 4 picks in day 2. I think that's enough to make some things happen. So, yeah, you can be excited about that, but there are still some things that need to get done. I do believe I've seen people talk about it in the chat. They need to bring back Raheem Mostert and make this offense explosive again, because Elijah Mitchell, even though he's a great runner, he doesn't have the explosivity that Raheem Mostert has. He just takes it to a whole nother level, so I'd like that. And I'm still going to keep saying this until I hear that this is not a possibility. I would love for the 49ers to make a phone call about my guy Laviska Shenault up there, actually down there in Jacksonville.
Oh, dude, Laviska Shenault. I mean, you and I, day one TCCers know. They know. They know how we feel about Viska. Viska is a fantastic talent, and if he truly is on the trade block, I would like the Niners to really take a look at that and see if there's a way to bring that man here to San Francisco, bring him into the fold here and see what happens. But one thing at a time, man. One thing at a time. That's all we can ask for.
Yeah, I see. Mike Nguyen said, "I don't understand how no one is talking about how good of a zone coverage type player Charvarius Ward is, which fits our scheme so well." You're not wrong. They've ran traditionally zone coverage a lot. The thing was with the switch last year to DeMeco Ryans, there was even a bigger emphasis on man coverage, and especially man coverage on third down. So I think that is the thing, and he's good at man coverage, really good. So there's an improvement there. But the 49ers have shifted away from the cover 3 they ran, when Robert Saleh came in and when Richard Sherman, came in to play corner from the 2018 for Richard Sherman.
Yep.
They've went away from that. They stopped drafting tall corners like Ahkello Witherspoon, and they've shifted to a more man coverage style. That includes the guys they have right now. So it is a shift. He can do both. That's why Charvarius Ward is worth $14 million, because he can do both. So I think we need to give this guy time to fit into the system. But you're right. He's a good guy who can play zone, but he can definitely play man at a high level as well.
Very true. And Ant, we totally forgot to mention that Trenton Cannon got signed by Tennessee.
We did.
We forgot to mention it. So Trenton Cannon,
how smart were they? They release Julio Jones and 5 minutes later sign Trenton Cannon, so that way no one would even think about it.
True, it's very accurate. That's how
you
cover
the Julio Jones signing. It's with our release is with a Trenton Cannon signing.
That's how you do it right there. Totally mitigates the damage. Also, Marvin Rose, welcome to the Cutback crew, my guy. Appreciate the subscription. Thank you for becoming a subscriber here on the 49ers Cutback, and hopefully you hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss any more breaking news, because we all know, Ant, there's more breaking news coming. And John and Jerry Young as well. Welcome to the TCC.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, there's more stuff going to happen today. I don't know how quickly or if it's going to trickle in. It's going to be interesting. I think that the 49ers, are going to make some more of these moves where people are going to be coming on here and saying, who are they? Some people are going to really know. And I've already seen some people posting footage of him playing against the 49ers last year and making big plays against Elijah Mitchell. There is definitely talent there. And when it comes to the way that they evaluate talent, they always ask Chris Kacerek. Chris Kacerek will give him an assessment on what he believes he can do with the player. And that's why they pay Chris Kacerek the most money that they do to a position coach, because he gets a lot out of his football players. This is a destination location for defensive linemen. So you got to feel like you can. I know Charles Omenihu is super psyched about being in San Francisco because he knows he could possibly turn this season into big money next year. So that's what these players are about. And that's why we're going to consistently see guys that come in here. You're like, wait a second, who's that? And then they're going to produce and they're going to go out and get big money. And you're going to see the next guy come in. It's kind of like Kyle Shanahan's coaching staff. They come in, they go out, they come in, they go out. That's how it's going to be with the defensive line. We're going to be able to keep the top end guys, but everyone else is going to keep rolling through.
Very true, Ant. Very, very true. And actually, I wanted to ask you about that. I think Charles Omenihu is a guy that a lot of people just put in the back of your mind and you kind of forget. Is the reason the Niners haven't gone after an edge rusher right now is they believe that this guy on third down could be a phenomenal pass specialist opposite Nick Bosa.
Yeah, no, definitely.
It's an interesting thought. It's something that I think 49ers fans need to keep in the back of their head. I know everyone wants the big splash, and I've seen a couple people already say, right, when are the Niners going to make the big move and the big splash? They may feel they have the dogs in the house, and it's about adding depth at certain spots that we're all thinking they need to go, shore it up and add it up. I'm not 100% sure. But listen, I know one thing, right? The one thing that I do know is the Jimmy Garoppolo situation is going to go down here in the next couple of days. It's the reality. Deshaun Watson, they're saying as early as today, maybe tonight, at the latest tomorrow is what it's sounding like it's going to be. As soon as that chip falls and that domino falls down, we're going to get a better idea of what the Niners are going to do, who the suitors are, and they're going to have a better idea of what offers on the table they want to take.
Yeah, and Jay Glazer's reporting that he's struggling with this decision, that he likes a couple of teams, and he knows how important this decision is, so he hasn't quite decided yet. So it's something that he's still looking to make. So, I mean, unfortunately, he's holding everyone in the NFL hostage that wants a quarterback, or the 49ers, they want to move off Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, Alex, what you brought up about not signing a high-priced guy, they did sign Ward, so maybe that is their high-price signing. But, with them making the restructures, with Kittle and with Armstead, they did free up cap space. Once Jimmy Garoppolo's contract moves off and they do re-sign Alshire and re-sign Daniel Brunskill, they're still going to have a little bit of money to play with. Of course, you want to keep some money for the draft picks, but they're going to have some money to play with. So, I mean, there you go. Do you think they still will make another signing? I think it'll be maybe a mid-level guy, or maybe a couple of mid-level guys. But do you think that they could be enticed to go after a big name if he came in for the right price?
Big name if it comes in for the right price. That's what it feels like. I thought maybe the Niners were potentially considering going all in with the Kittle restructure and the Armstead restructure, but it looks like that's not the case. It looks like it was just to make sure they came in under the salary cap, and they're just buying themselves more time for Jimmy Garoppolo. So it looks like this is a mid-level year. And it's a mid-level year guy. Add a bunch of mid-level guys, add some depth across, draft some more talent, and continue to build your roster out and trust your coaching staff to develop these guys. I know I've seen a couple people talk about, the Niners don't draft players well. They don't develop players well. And that's just far from true. The Niners have developed a lot of the talent they have in-house. A lot of it is in-house talent that has developed over the years and are now getting big contracts getting paid either in San Francisco or other places.
Yeah. And I seen Brave 187 said, that, is there any rumors of the 49ers signing a guard or a backup tackle? And so far, no. I mean, besides Daniel Brunskill and Tom Compton, I haven't really heard of anything. They're not really going outside the players they had last year. There were players available and players that fit the scheme, and the 49ers just didn't go that route. All those players got decent contracts. So I don't think that is going to happen. And then I also seen, I missed who exactly said it. Oh, it's Mike again. He said, what are your honest thoughts about Trey Sermon? Is he another Joe Williams?
Interesting. I think dang, poor Trey Sermon, man. Can't catch a break around here.
I think the difference between him and Joe Williams, though, is Williams, had taken time off from college, basically, quit on his team. Trey Sermon has never done any of that.
No.
And then I think the reason is kind of equated to that is, Joe Williams was a Kyle Shanahan guy, where I don't know if Trey Sermon's a Kyle Shanahan guy or if he was a Bobby Turner guy or just this front office guy. So I think that those are a little bit different that way.
Yeah. I think the reality too is that Trey Sermon, there was an idea maybe the team could shift its running style to do a different style that maybe fit Trey Sermon's skill set a little bit better. And yes, Cyrus, thank you for that, man. Welcome to the crew, Omar, absolutely. Welcome to the TCC, my guy, Omar John. So I think there was a thought process in mind in terms of what they thought Trey Sermon could be and what he could add to the room. But it looks like that just didn't come to fruition last year. That wasn't the reality of the situation. And so Can you do that this year? Can you make that switch? Maybe the run game can change a little bit more to a running style that fits his better. The problem is I don't think that's the case. I think the Niners have shown they're a one cut go kind of team with their running back room, right? Like look at the other running backs they have on the roster. They're one cut go guys. You know who's not? Trey Sermon. Trey Sermon hasn't shown he's that guy. His vision isn't that level of elite. It's not Raheem Mostert levels of elite. It's not Elijah Mitchell levels of elite. He misses things and more things than Elijah Mitchell does. And they're both rookies. They both came in as rookies last year. So, Trey Sermon's got a lot of work to do. Are the Niners giving up on him? I don't think they're giving up on him. But he is putting himself in a situation where if he doesn't show drastic development this offseason, his time in San Francisco could be running out.
My biggest concern with Trey Sermon, and this goes all the way back to the open practice where me and you saw him and Elijah Mitchell and those guys for the first time, was, how much hesitation he had in the backfield. And we know that this offense is built on one cut and go guys. And that's why when we walked away from it, I told you Elijah Mitchell is was the best running back I saw out there. Because Trey Sermon just looked, like he was thinking about the hole to get to. What you got to do is find the hole and go. And the holes are going to be a lot smaller in the NFL than they were in college. And he was struggling a little bit with the vision. Now, I don't think he's one of those guys that can't play in the NFL. I think there is some scheme fit issues there. They were trying to teach him how to get his foot in the ground and go. Elijah Mitchell talked about how he struggled with that as well, that he was trying to figure that out. But he just looked farther along. They ran a more similar scheme in where he went to college in Louisiana. So it made sense for him to translate better. Also, he has a little bit more speed than Trey Sermon, where Sermon will struggle a little bit on the outside zone and things to the outside. But I do think that Trey Sermon could develop into a Jeff Wilson type role or more of a power back role. Even he's a different runner than Jeff Wilson, but he does have a big frame and a big body, not much bigger than Elijah Mitchell. So shockingly, I still think Trey Sermon is going to have to work uphill to make this roster. And that's why I would love for the 49ers to go and address the running back position, not only with Raheem Mostert, but also with someone like a Marlon Mack, a Cordero Patterson, or a Phillip Lindsay. I think those are three guys that are on target for people I think that would not only upgrade the 49ers running back room, but maybe even upgrade off JaMychal Hasty and Trey Sermon. And if that's the case, go ahead and do what I want you to do. Flip Trey Sermon with a 7th round pick for Laviska Shenault. Trent Baalke, help your boy out.
Very much the case. That could be the Trent Baalke. Seriously, help your boys out here. We really would appreciate that. I saw Pete Duncan said he was in the same boat as Ayuk. He'll be fine. No, they were not in the same boat. Ayuk was in a doghouse because of his work ethic and other things that were going on, and his lack of pushing himself in practice, running routes at 100% full speed, and other things. He put himself in that position, but even with that, he was still getting on the field. Right? It wasn't a performance thing from Ayuk in terms of he doesn't have or he doesn't understand the system. It's you're not doing what we need you to do, practice in, practice out, day in, day out. Trey Sermon wasn't showing them that he could do the things he needed to do. That's why he didn't get a chance. The minute Raheem Mostert went down with Jeff Wilson Jr. on the shelf, and you got JaMychal Hasty, Trey Sermon, and Elijah Mitchell, in theory, it should have been a committee. In theory, the fact that Elijah Mitchell literally grabbed the brass ring, yanked it, ran away with it for the entirety of the season says that Trey Sermon and Brandon Ayuk were not even close to being in the same boat.
Yeah, and the thing was, JaMychal Hasty's role was always going to be third down back. I mean, that's what he does. That's what he's built for. And with Trey Sermon, he got his opportunity against Green Bay. If he would have went out and played a very, very good football game and showed that he had the vision and showed that he had the footwork, he would have gotten more snaps. That was his chance to earn it. That was his opportunity. All those guys in front of him are gone. So he's got some development to do. Can he do it? Yes. That's why they got the offseason. This guy could come back next year and absolutely tear it up. But from what we've seen so far, it looks like he didn't develop enough under Bobby Turner. And I'm sure Bobby Turner put as much work as he could into him, but he's got to develop at some point.
He has to. It's on Trey Sermon at this point. It is definitely on Trey Sermon. Jay, I got to bounce real quick. I got to go take care of a couple of things. So I'll let you finish up and wrap up here. Cutback crew, though, we are going to go on at about 6:30 to just talk about any breaking news and just kind of talk about things that have happened throughout the day, what we think the Niners are going to do next. So I won't be here for the rest of this stream. Ant's going to take it away from here. And Ant, man, fun. Hassan Ridgeway, a San Francisco 49. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm not going to stay on very much longer anyway. So if you guys have a couple questions, I'm gonna take a couple questions, and then I'm gonna bounce as well because we do have the stream coming up at 6:30. So I'm gonna go ahead and take care of a couple things. So if you have a couple questions, go ahead, lay it out there, and then I'm gonna hop off as well.
See what you got, Cutback crew. Let's see what you got. What do they have, man? There we go.
Here, Aloha, did you guys hear anything about Nick Bosa? Did the 49ers give Nick Bosa a new contract? He needs one, right? Stanley, my guy Stanley, what's up? Aloha. No, they did not give him a new contract. They will not give him a new contract until they have Deebo Samuel's contract done. Don't expect anything until closer to training camp. So don't think that that's going to happen. Yeah, Res, for sure. Nick and Deebo need new contracts. They're going to get them, but it's not right now. Power Fitness says Kyle Shanahan is so overrated. Power Fitness, not a fan of Kyle Shanahan. Although, Power Fitness, I am a fan of you. You do a good job in the chat, so continue that. But since there's no more questions, guys, we're going to sign out. But we're going to see you all at 6:30 for the live stream. So make sure you guys hop back on at that point. It's going to be fun. Looking forward to it. And we'll see you guys all then, because we know the right way is always
the 49ers way.
You know that's right.